A couple days ago I managed to beat Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which means that I've played all of the worlds and can now begin to rank them from worst to best. I'm sure there are secret levels that I haven't discovered yet in most if not all of these worlds since I wasn't going for a 100% playthrough, but it's still worth talking about which worlds are good and which ones aren't. We're going to be covering every world outside of the special world since I've only unlocked one level in the special world so far. Based off of the one level I played in the special world, it's probably my favorite because of the difficulty, but I obviously can't say for sure. Anyway, let's begin with number 7. In last place so far we have World 4, Sunbaked Desert. Despite feeling like one of the shortest worlds in the game, Sunbaked Desert has more Wonder Seeds than any other world in the game, which is pretty weird. I think one of the reasons the world felt so short is because most of the levels in this world honestly feel very similar to each other. I can't look back at more than one of these levels in this world and say, remember that level? The only level from this world that I really remembered was the Secrets of Shova Mansion, but that wasn't even because of the level itself, it was just that it seemed like a ghost house from previous New Super Mario games. The best part about Sunbaked Desert is definitely the castle level, which I would argue is the best castle level, aside from the last one, in the entire game. The unfortunate part about the Sunbaked Desert castle is that the boss fight for it is also the worst in the game. I don't know why enough people thought a Bowser Jr. fight underwater was a good enough idea for it to get implemented into the game. But oh well, bosses in general are the biggest flaw with Mario Wonder, but at least most of them go down pretty fast. This Bowser Jr. fight isn't only the least enjoyable, but it also felt like it was the longest. It's important to mention that every world in this game is pretty good, and I wouldn't say any of them are bad. Sunbaked Desert is just too forgettable for me to put it any higher than where it is now. The amount of secrets within the map itself were pretty cool, but it wasn't enough to justify the entire area. At number 6 is World 3, Shining Falls. Going from the large and impressive fluff puff peaks to this quiet and small area was definitely surprising. More so than any other world in the game, this world really felt like a side quest rather than an entire world that I felt like exploring. Obviously it has the least amount of Wonder Seeds in any world, but that's not the only reason it felt like a side quest. The formula of having the player go through designated trials one after another made it feel a lot like its own one-off adventure that had nothing to do with the main game. Now I'm not gonna pretend that this harmed the world that much. Doing these challenges one after another was pretty fun and a nice change of pace from the rest of the game. The problem is that I never really felt like this was its own big world in the same way I did with the rest of them. There isn't even a castle level or even an airship level. There isn't a castle level or an airship level in the Fungi Mines either, but the final level in that world felt more important compared to the one in Shining Falls. In general, Shining Falls feels like the scale is really low compared to the rest of the worlds in this game, and that's the reason it's lower than most of them. The only reason I liked it more than the Sunbaked Desert is that I thought it stood out a lot more in terms of atmosphere, and I thought the level design was a little bit better. Before we continue with the ranking, I would like to ask you to subscribe. Okay, now despite having a more fulfilling final level, World 5, Fungi Mines, is still going in the 5th spot in the ranking. Unlike the small and important Shining Falls, which only has 20 Wonder Seeds, the grandiose and incredible Fungi Mines have an entire 21 Wonder Seeds. So yeah, it's just as small. All of the things that I said about the Shining Falls can be said about the Fungi Mines as well, so I won't waste your time, but there are a few reasons I think the Fungi Mines are a little bit better. The aesthetic of the Fungi Mines actually reminds me a lot of the Shining Falls. It's quiet and weird, but the biggest difference between the Shining Falls and the Fungi Mines is the level design. While there are some levels in the Fungi Mines with more serene atmosphere and gameplay, there are also a whole lot of levels that feel more mysterious and tricky, similar to your standard jungle levels from old 2D Mario. Jungle worlds were always my favorite in the older Mario games, so I naturally gravitate towards this type of level design more than the levels from Shining Falls. Both Shining Falls and the Fungi Mines feel similar in scale, so the better final level and improved atmosphere make this world slightly better than Shining Falls for me. Oh yeah, and also the coolest badge is unlocked in this area. Now that we're done talking about the little baby small worlds, it's time to begin talking about the larger worlds, starting with Deep Magma Bog. When I first discovered this area, I assumed it would be your typical fire world from a Mario game with levels that feel enclosed and dangerous, but after playing the world I can tell you that like half of the levels are the complete opposite of that. Despite how compact and dense the area looks on a map, the levels themselves feel surprisingly open and carefree. Sure, there are a lot of levels that follow the enclosed design that you'd come to expect, but a lot of them don't. A lot of these levels feel like you're moving around an open volcano of some sort rather than traversing through an ashy cave. The gameplay for these levels is also surprisingly fun. Easy, Very easy for a fire world, but fun nonetheless. The levels here still lack the same level of creativity that the worlds higher on our list have, but the levels are very well done. It has a good castle level, the best airship level in the game, and a terrible boss fight against Bowser Jr. It basically has everything you would expect from a good world. Let's move on to our number 3 spot, but before that I have to mention that from here on out we are going to be talking about certified masterpieces of worlds. The worlds we've been talking about so far have all been very solid B tiers on a tier list. They're good, certainly not bad, but nothing special. But this is where we make a leap from the B tier to the S tier. The next few worlds I'm going to discuss are some of, if not the best worlds in 2D Mario history, starting with Pipe Rock Plateau. Pipe Rock Plateau is a very good way to start the game. It serves as a tutorial area, and you can tell that by judging how easy most of the levels in the area are, but the lack of difficulty doesn't drag down the overall experience. In terms of level design, this might actually be the most unique world in the entire game. Despite looking like a standard place filled with some grass and hills, all the levels feel very unique and fun. The stupid little hoppos and bull things are some of my favorite additions to the enemy pool, and they only really show up in Pipe Rock Plateau for whatever reason. One of my favorite levels in the entire game is the one in Pipe Rock Plateau where you get to race the Wiggler. Yes, there are 2 other Wiggler races, we'll get to that later, but the sheer excitement I felt when I realized I was seriously going to race a Wiggler across an entire stage was impossible to top throughout the entire game. There was also this moment when I did a ground pound on a pipe and it got taken down to an entirely new area. This is when I said, oh wow. This is going to be a really good video game. Bowser Jr. in Pipe Rock Plateau Castle is also one of the only 2 good boss fights in this entire game, so that's pretty cool. The sense of adventure I got from Pipe Rock Plateau was never matched throughout the rest of the game. The only reason it's not at the top is because I don't think the level design was as good, but honestly the top 3 is completely interchangeable, so let's move on. At our number 2 slot, I had to put the Petal Isles. Both the outside map and the in-game level are so serene and beautiful, and the Petal Isles deliver such an amazing, tropical, and calm feeling. The atmosphere feels like they were finally able to do what they wanted to do with the water worlds in previous Mario games, but this time they actually managed to do it. The levels themselves are almost all perfect. They either deliver on your expectations or they exceed them. And that is unless it's a water level. Many of the levels in the Petal Isles are actually not underwater, but the ones that are water levels are about what you would expect. Water gameplay in Mario is so inherently boring that they couldn't make the water levels great, even if they had the best level design in any video game. There is a seemingly good solution though, the Dolphin Kick badge, which makes the levels way more enjoyable than I ever thought possible. My only question is why this was implemented as a badge and not an actual control that everybody can do, since it's the only way to make these levels fun. The problem with this solution is that you can't reasonably use any other badge for the water levels, since the Dolphin Kick badge is so useful, effective, fun, and everything else underwater, and that restriction obviously isn't a good thing. So yeah. Water levels aren't great. What else is new? Remember that I mentioned there being 2 other Wiggler races in the game? Well, both of these are in the Petal Isles, and one of them is actually better than the first one. The fact that I can praise the first Wiggler level so much and they can make a level that's even better in the Petal Isles just shows how good the game design in this area is. The final level, Bowser's Rage Stage, which I believe to be the best level in the entire game, is also technically in the Petal Isles, which is just even more of a reason to love the area. So considering how much I'm gassing the Petal Isles up, what world could be better? Well, of course the answer is Fluff Puff Peaks, baby! Combining both the Sky World and the Ice World was a genius idea which only aided to the amazing level design, gradually ascending through the air as it transitions from a snowy area to a cloudy area, really makes your progress clear throughout the world. It's also the world where the bubble power-up gets used a lot more, which I think is the coolest power-up in the game. Fluff Puff Peaks feels so cartoonish and lively while also feeling important and meaningful. It's hard to describe what makes this world so appealing to me, and I think I've done the best I can. I can't think of a single thing wrong with Fluff Puff Peaks. Oh wait a second, there's a Bowser Jr. fight.